Rochelle?
Here.
Counselor Moore?
Here.
Counselor Robichaud?
Here.
Counselor Lunt?
Here.
Counselor Fellows?
Here.
Counselor Smith?
Here.
Counselor Miller?
Here.
First item, please.
Good news and recognition.
Anybody have any good news and recognition?
I just
All
want
right,
to take
sir.
a second. I'm Public Works Director. My name's Randy Sear. A week ago Saturday, we lost a very good employee of the town, Elwood Beals, also known as Buttons. He passed away. He spent 38 years of his time here at the Public Works Department. He'll be greatly missed. The guy gave his all for the department. So just wanted to give a shout out to the listening public that probably know or don't know what was going on, but he passed away, and hell of a guy. He's going to be greatly missed, and just wanted to give him the recognition he deserves as being here for 38 years. That's all.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Randy. Anybody else?
I concur with Randy. He was a great guy. I knew him 40 years that I worked here, and he was always there for you. Very intelligent, knew his job, did his job. He was a good guy.
Absolutely. And I do want to thank Randy and the crew. We had a pretty interesting storm over this past weekend, and I want to thank the Public Works for being out there. It was, I'm not sure if many people actually were out driving around later in the storm. During the day seemed pretty easy, but that evening, man, it was a challenge to see anything. So we do really appreciate everything the crew did, and I know it's a lot of work out there. So thank you again. Next item, please.
Public hearings. Once the chair opens the public hearing, those present who wish to speak approach a lectern to address the council chair. Please use a microphone and state your name for the record. Medical marijuana retail store license for BBB Pharmaceutical Alternatives, LLC.
I'll open that public hearing. Is anybody here who'd like to speak on that particular public hearing? Seeing no movement, we'll close that public hearing. Next, please.
Adult use products manufacturing facility for Cannabis Angels.
I'll open a public hearing. Is anybody here that would like to speak upon that? All right, seeing none, we'll actually close that public hearing. Next item, please.
Audience participation and response for agenda items. At this time, those in the audience who wish to speak may approach the lectern to address items or issues that are on the agenda. Please use the microphone and state your name for the record.
We'll open that up, so if anybody has anything to comment on, anything that's actually be coming up in the agenda tonight, please step forward. Please state your name and if you're a resident. And
Tracy Austin, Lisbon. So I'm going to speak on the Rarumbo site. This has been a topic of conversation for a little while now, and I can fully respect the process in which it has come thus far. My viewpoint is I would really like to save the view, so I'm going to be completely honest with that. However, in this past week, I've been thinking of other more viable reasons to keep the information, but possibly put a pause on it. And here are my reasons why. Right now, Lisbon is experiencing what I consider a major personnel gaps. We have, not that anyone that is here isn't capable of doing such a large project, but that I've served on boards where the thought process is always not to tie someone's hands that it would be new to come in. So we have some major spots that are going to need to be filled that we don't have currently. As much as I respect and am excited that the police chief decided to be our interim, I don't believe he wants to do both roles forever.
That's correct.
So,
you agree with that also? Yeah.
On the record, that's correct.
so with that being said, giving somebody an opportunity who's going to come in and get caught up and understand the town, and that all takes time. The other part is we have 4 brand new board members, which I can remember being a new board member on the school committee, and it was a whirlwind. That first year is really a lot about learning and understanding processes and how things go and all of that stuff. So I can't imagine any major decisions being done at this time. As well as, I can appreciate surveys, and I don't always put full faith in one way or another, no matter which side of an organization is doing something. But right now, to host that stuff during COVID, I don't think gives a true reflection. People's anxiety levels are higher. People have very, very, very strong opinions, no matter if they have all of the information or not, one way or another. The history of some of the properties that we currently have in town that were once grand and beautiful, that have changed ownerships over time, and are no longer that and are struggling. I think that those types of historical things need to be taken a look at. Our looming economy. I think you can talk to, at least I have talked to several businesses on Main Street, and this winter seems to be harder. At least I've only been in the industry for 4 years, going on 5. But this winter with COVID, with the economy we're not in flux yet, but it's coming. I think all the writings on the walls of the prices going up and things like that. This winter is started off to be not so great. So those are my fundamental reasons, thinking from a committee side of my brain, that I can respect, again, all of the work. I've dealt with some major projects on my side as being on the school committee, and it is a lot of work, and I can appreciate that. But I'm just wondering if now is the time just to hit pause. We have the road construction coming up anyway, and that lot needs to be used for the disruption of service on the street for employees and customers and consumers and visitors to the town, to be able to be used for parking anyway. So that would be my request to you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Michael Wilding, we have a railroad restaurant down there. Sandy and I run it. I guess I would like to just touch on a couple of things. What you guys have created down there so far, people can't even believe what it is. They love it. We've had so many of our people, they're just amazed by it. And it's helped us a lot, and I believe it's going to continue to. Also, last summer you did the car shows down there, and that helped us a lot on Monday nights. It made quite a difference, and I think people really enjoyed that. The biggest thing I want to say, I hope as you go forward with this and make your decisions, you would keep in mind one thing. What we do down there, we've been there just about 14 years, and a lot of what we do involves music. Not all rock and roll bands. Kevin does the blues jams, but a lot of music. Some is inside, a lot is outside during the summer months in the tent, and almost all of it involves a benefit for different things, different people, different organizations, stuff like that. We looked awful hard when we finally went in there. We were almost 5 years between places because it's hard to find a location. I mentioned this once before. You got to have the right setting for something like that, and it's worked out very well. We're just very concerned if you do decide to go residential, it's going to have a big impact on us. I don't think we'll be able to continue with the music end of it like we have all these years, And I just wanted to ask if you'd consider that when you're making your decisions, that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Ross Cunningham, a resident of Lisbon and current president of Positive Change Lisbon, also the organizer of the Lisbon Concerts in the Park for the last 12 years. First of all, nice to meet the new faces. Thank you so much for volunteering for your time on the council. I wanted to just share a couple of notes here that I've been writing down. So PCL is a group that is sort of consists of supporting businesses throughout the community in what they do and try to grow. And we reached out throughout this whole process to our businesses to say, hey, how do you feel? What do you think? What's going on down here? And we heard back from a lot of businesses, and I brought a letter to the board back in the fall with sort of, hey, please consider all options. Since then, it's been very quiet. But what I continue to hear is from the people who are down in that footprint, hey, please help us out. We don't really want residential. That's not the right fit for this footprint. So, you know, those businesses are really dedicated to their area, to growing their businesses, and this continues to be promoted as a benefit for the businesses downtown of Lisbon Falls, but the businesses I'm hearing from are saying, thank you, but no, we don't really want this. And I do want to point out that what I'm not hearing from any businesses, not a single business has called us and said, hey, we really, really want residential down there. That's what our town needs. I've not heard that from anybody. I'm sure you guys have your own communications. That's fine. But as a business organization, we're not hearing that message, and I wanted to make sure I shared that with you today. As far as economic development, you know, there's a lot of what I don't think has happened properly in this is you haven't been given examples of the benefits of a green space in a community. Nobody's come to you and said, hey, look at these towns, Berwick and Gardner and, you know, even Bath. You know, the money they bring in through some of the events down in their green space is a huge boon to the economy. And I know that when you think about all the businesses down in that area, whether it's Frank's or Crafts or, you know, the new brewery, I would bet to a T, and I can't speak for these people, I haven't necessarily connected with all of them, but to a T, they would rather see 300 to 400 people come into town once a week for an event than 20 new families live down on that footprint, because the difference is monumental. When you get new people coming through, they get new exposure to town. Some of those folks wind up living here, that's great, but a lot of them just wind up coming back for lunch or coming back for dinner or maybe coming back because they saw the car they liked at Crafts, you know, that kind of thing. So it's really important, and I just wanted to make sure you heard that nobody's calling me and saying, we really want residential housing, it's what our community needs. On the second hat I'm going to put on is the concerts I've been running for 11 years. We routinely have 300 to 500 people at a concert every week. There are still lots of people in town that don't even know we have these concerts, and we, you know, we fill them up. The Moxie concert, we can have up to 2,000 people, and we've had that over the years. Chief, you can back us up on that. We've had some big numbers. Close to 30 to 40% of those people are from out of town. We know that because we get feedback from people. We get Facebook responses. We do, you know, reaching out through Facebook and social media. And this is tucked away up at MTM. If we were to move this, if there were a concert space down there where we could move these events down to the waterfront, it would easily double our attendance, double the draw from out of town. If you look at the Riverside concerts they have in Bath, down on the waterfront, they're huge. Thousands of people every time they have it, and they found a way to charge people money and make money off that. We haven't done that yet, and I'm not sure we would, but it still brings people to our community and helps grow the area and grow the community. I will tell you that if there's apartment complexes down there, and I know that there's a plan to share the space, some of the residential proposals have shared space, residential and a community space, I would not be personally comfortable putting concerts down there on a Sunday evening with people living right there. I mean, the neighborhood at MTM is one thing, those folks are really tolerable, but I wouldn't want to go put it in front of a two-story apartment building. It just would not be comfortable, and I don't think it's something we, as PCL, would encourage. So that's all I got. Thank you again for engaging in this conversation and moving forward in the best interest of the town. Thanks.
Kevin Kimball, resident. I'll start by saying I've been struggling with how I wanted to present my thoughts this evening, and I want to do so in a way that is less likely to strain friendships. I hope that I don't, but I do have to speak truth as I see it. I'd like to start by reminding the folks here that had it not been for the grassroots efforts of Save the View, which I might add was and is a most fundamental act of democracy itself, we would not be discussing the option of a green space at the Warumbo site at all. Instead, our discussion would be limited to the degree to which commercial and residential development would take place and nothing more. Only when we raised enough ruckus did the green space option get some attention, albeit a tepid one at best. So now the EDC cites green space in all their development proposals, but that is a disingenuous appropriation of our words green space. Simply put, it ain't what we meant when we responded to the original proposals over a year ago. If we put a housing development on the site, then we will be required to also create adequate parking. 2 parking spaces per unit, I'm given to understand, is the general rule. Folks, that's a lot of tarmac. That's a lot of blacktop. And what's left over is what the EDC calls green space. You know what I call it? A lawn. More to the point, a lawn for the tenants, not the town residents. Perhaps not by the letter of the law, but certainly for all practical purposes. And again, it's not what we mean by green space. Let's be clear on that. No matter how many times we hear it cited in all the other proposals, that is not what we meant by green space. What about the traffic that would ensue? Canal Street will become even more of a bottleneck than it already is. Over and over we hear that we want Lisbon to be attractive to businesses and families. So let's make Lisbon just that, attractive. Look around us. Look at other communities, some that Ross has mentioned. Let's take Brunswick, for example. Look at the activities and vendors on their beautiful mall on the main street. How many visitors, customers, and dollars does that bring to the surrounding businesses? Or something that I can speak to with some authority, the Maine Blues Festival in Naples, Maine. I'm the promoter. The businesses report consistently that the Maine Blues Festival is the single biggest sales day of their year. And since the Warumbo site opened up, I have been considering doing something similar here in Lisbon. We now have enough space and venues to pull it off. But if there are apartment units on that site, I wouldn't be able to do anything worthwhile. I wouldn't do it. I'm not going to put bands in somebody's backyard. Not only would I be unable to use the Warumbo site, but I would also lose the railroad as a venue as well. Game over. I can't put a festival in like that. I maintain that we are ignoring a once-in-a-several-generations opportunity. This opportunity won't come our way again in any of our lifetimes if we blow it now. Why are we so hell-bent on squandering this now revealed spot of beauty? There are plenty of other places to create housing. Once that site, once that view is gone, it's gone forever.
Hi, my name is Sandra Harkins from the Railroad Restaurant and Pub, and I've come about the Warumbo site, obviously. We have been there, as Mike had said, almost 14 years, and it took us a long time to find that site. We had another place previously up by where Food City is, and when that building was torn down, we wound up looking for something else and couldn't find anything. It took 5 years to find that. Something with parking, exposure, and away from houses as for what we did. Benefits, music, all kinds of different things. So we finally did discover that site. We almost took one on Main Street, but it didn't work out, and it wouldn't have worked out for us anyways. So that one was perfect. So that's where we wound up. Over the years, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of benefits that we've done there for people. And most of the percentage is people in town, people who have children with cancer, adults with cancers, funerals, lose their house, you name it, all kinds of things. And without music down there, everything that we do just about outside with these benefits involves music. And to have housing out back there, and we're right in the backyard of where people are going to wind up living. and it's not going to work. There's no way. They're not going to tolerate it. They're not going to want to hear it. They're going to want peace and quiet, I believe, a lot of them, and it's just not anything that I see that is a workable situation. The green space is wonderful, and I do agree with that, and I would love to see it. But housing, to me, is a last-ditch effort for that area. It's just not a fit for us. We've been there all that long, and our business would suffer directly, severely, as a result of having a housing development built back there. So I don't know. It's like I don't know if there's a win-win situation here or whatever, but I do know that that is not workable, and it would not be workable for us. As far as everything else that I had that I was going to say, they pretty much covered it. But I am very, very concerned about the idea of putting housing. So, thank you.
Lorelei Haliger, resident and a budding business owner for the Warumbo development as well. Definitely agree with everything they said. I don't feel like I need to reiterate any of it. I did, however, look at it from a little bit of a different angle. I just want to give you guys statistics that I printed off for you. I don't remember them that well. So I looked at the surveys that the town did, as well as the survey or the outreach that the Save the View had done as well, and I just put some numbers together of what people actually had said to us, the people that are speaking up and what they actually wanted. The first thing I did was pull out some population statistics for 2022, and just to point out that 75% are not actually renters in Lisbon and Lisbon Falls. They're actually homeowners, and that the average household size is 2.5 people. So these one-bedroom units are not actually going to solve the housing problem for the current residents of Lisbon at all. Most of them, 50% of our people are married. It's their families. We need family housing, and honestly, as the surveys have pointed out and the market study, we're low income. So that's going to end up low income housing that's tax exempt, and we're not going to see any revenue from it because it's not the people of Lisbon that those apartments are going to support. As the Lisbon survey stats, those are the ones that the town did with the 306 people that responded. Out of those people, 221 left comments. 81 wanted no residential, lower residential property tax, which isn't possible because of the way it's set up with the TIF fund, or mostly green space, concert venue, parking, or fixing the traffic first before doing anything. There was only 30 that even mentioned wanting residential at all, mostly wanting a limited residential with mostly commercial, keeping the green space and parking. There was 5 that mentioned absolutely no low-income housing and 3 that actually wanted elderly housing. And then 89 left no comment or didn't like the options or the way it was presented. The one problem with the way that it was divided out is it really skewed the results. I don't think people had clear options of develop or don't, or housing or not, or it was just very vague, I think, and there was a lot of comments saying I'd rather see this, or we should see more options looking like this, and so if anything, it needs to be redone, I think, to survey the people. With the Save the View, there was 83 emails sent to the town council. 81 of them supported absolutely zero residential and saving the view. All but 3 wanted no development at all, commercially or residentially, and there were only 2 opposed. The other thing I do want to bring up is the campus commons thing as well. That was another poor example of how this can go very wrong. And I think that because we're so low income, that's the only inevitable thing that's going to happen with a development like that down there. But I think we could really help the businesses and the people invested in this town thrive here that already exist. And there's a lot of our businesses willing to put our money where our mouth is. So we're willing to help. It doesn't have to cost everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else looking to speak on any items on the agenda tonight?
I'm actually Lisa Ward from the Development Committee. I actually received an email from someone who, in the community who asked me to present a few words, if I may read that for you. Many of you know him, Jeff Ganong, a former counselor, sent this email to me today. He also sent it to a lot of it's from previous comments at previous meetings, and I think he just put it all into one brief note. He says, I just wanted to weigh in on the Warumbo site discussion. I support a mixed-use development plan, a development with a large portion of the land set aside for public use for the Warumbo site. I think a development like that would benefit the town for the following reasons. 1, increase the housing supply in town. There is a housing shortage in the state and the region, and though this wouldn't solve the shortage, it would help. My employer, Bath Iron Works, is trying to hire over 2,000 people this year, and one of the biggest hurdles to the new hires is just trying to find a place to live near the yard. This has been highlighted by the president of the company in a recent Defense News profile of BIW. And just in my recent staff meeting, my manager asked our team if anyone knew of the apartments in the area for rent. I like living in this town, and if other people want to live here and contribute to our community, I would like to at least give people a chance to do so. To that end, I tend to like the conceptual plans with the larger building, but I think I'm in the minority on that one. 2, increase tax revenue for the town. I will concede that putting in a development alone will not have a large impact on people's tax bills. This year, the town budget is slated at $11.2 million, and the town's portion of the school's budget is $7.7 million. That's almost $19 million in total that the town has to raise in revenue. Even if the council spends on the same personnel, items, and services from one year to the next, inflation and cost of living increases alone will make the budget rise. And assuming that the tax revenue from a development is anywhere between $20,000 to $200,000, it is not going to make a difference in the mill rate, but it will help with that annual price creep that happens every year, and is much more than the town. And it is much more than the town would be from vendor fees at $25 to $100 per vendor, depending on the duration. Add to the fact that if the town wanted to keep the space undeveloped, it would still cost the town personnel resources to maintain it. 3, one point that I don't see many people addressing from the don't develop side of the argument is that in all of the conceptual development drawings, even if the largest development was built on that space, there would still be the largest green space in town, not including Beaver Park, that the town residents could enjoy with the view of the river preserved, and even the walking path would eventually connect to it. Plus, there could be room for a playground, a stage for events, and places for food vendors with their vendor fees. The only thing we would lose would be certain views of the river from Route 196 and beyond, which is a cost, but one I think is worth it for the other benefits I mentioned above. So in short, I am pro mixed-use development because the town gets additional housing, more businesses, more revenue for the town and local businesses, and a large green space for residents to enjoy with space for events, vendors, and a great view of the river. Thank you for your time. Jeff Ganong, 35 Frost Hill Ave. So I just want to make it clear, this is my presentation for Mr. Ganong, and it doesn't represent my views. As most of you know, I've done my best to remain neutral and try to bring forward all the different views. And I did check to see if I had any other emails right before the meeting started. I didn't see any, but if I get some along the way, I'll make sure I pass them on for you. Okay, thank you.
Sorry to step up here twice. Ross Cunningham again. I just wanted to mention, has been on my mind, I understand the plan, should you move forward with the town survey, is to send out a survey with 4 questions, the way they have been proposed, I believe, by the Development Council. I just wanted to caution you to find a way to make the selection clear. You know, if you put out 4 options and you get 20% number 1 and 20% number 2 and 30% number 3 and, you know, what's left, then you wind up with, you know, what if 50% or 60% want 1 and 4, but only 40% want 2 and 3, and what do you know, maybe a ranked choice voting option, maybe something along those lines, so that there's really, each response has to come back with one clear, this is what I want, and there's, you know, and maybe combine 2 and 3 so that you don't wind up splitting the votes and things like that. Just an extra thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. Anybody else on any other items for the agenda tonight? Seeing no movement. Next item, please.
Mr. Chair, am I allowed to ask questions of the speakers?
Of people that came up to speak. Do you want to do it during the presentation of the Rumble development, if the people here, or I mean, I don't think there's any rules against the area. So I mean, it'd be one of those things where if there was a particular person that came up,
Well, Ross, basically,
Sure.
if I could,
Absolutely.
you had mentioned that you spoke with a lot of the businesses in this footprint,
Yes, sir.
and pretty much universally they are looking at the green space idea. Have you gone, or has anybody who spoke gone outside of that footprint and talked to
Absolutely.
residents
And
and
I
asked?
apologize, you weren't here. You weren't on the council earlier when I brought a letter from.
Let me finish my
Sorry, go
question.
ahead.
And has anybody, residents other than businesses, mentioned anything about the desire for a tax base there, or tax revenue there?
Not directly to me, but I've heard it sort of in discussions that, yeah, hey, we're really looking forward to this development because it'll cut our taxes. And I know that to really not be true from the way I understand TIFs and development things. But, generally, as a rule, I think that there are folks who are looking forward to that aspect, and I think that's absolutely a concern.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. If anybody else wants to respond to that, I appreciate
I'll
it.
respond to that.
Thank you.
We see a lot of residents at our restaurant, and we have little cards on the table that say Save the View, and they ask about it, and they go on to the site, and then they ask more questions, and every time there's a meeting like this, I will hear it all week. What happened at the meeting, what this, what that. Most people that have expressed, well, I do have some, it's a smaller percentage that I would say maybe 3% think the idea of housing is a good idea. But the vast majority of them like the idea of having something that is along the lines, but along the lines of like Thompson's Point, where you have a venue for concerts, or just going to use it. This is what I use as an example when I speak to them. I want to hire Bob Marley to come do a concert, a show. I'm going to sell tickets. I'm going to purchase a vendor's license of some sort with a fee that the town council tells me I've got to pay. And I'm going to charge that ticket price. They're going to come in. You can have food. We can have food trucks that are at a fee, and those fees with events would pay for the maintenance of the property. And during the week, people can go play soccer out there or whatever it winds up being. But having a spot where you are able to do that. Now, my thought, because I'm a pie in the sky type of girl, is if you built a structure that would be able to have like big barn doors to close if it's windy that day or whatever, that you're able to have, again, a farmer's market that is every Friday. Like, I go and buy fresh flowers all the time at the Brunswick one because I know they're there. They're there every Friday. That if you had those things, you would also be able to potentially rent it out as a reunion venue where those people bring in their food trucks to service their event, but the event has a charge because events have a charges, and those fees, again, go in for the maintenance of the program. So when I explain that to people, they love that idea. They think it's great. Again, I'm pie in the sky. I get that. But I think that through the years, I have been able to prove to people that the gymnasium was pie in the sky too, and that got accomplished. And I think that working together, you are able to do those things and do them well. But that's what I hear.
Thank you.
I'll be gone. Just to reiterate on what Tracy has said, we've had a lot of comments from people, our customers that come in and whatever, about the taxes, and they are all looking for tax relief. And for some reason, they all seem to be under the idea that they're going to see direct drops in their taxes when this housing goes up. And I tell them that's not going to happen, and a lot of them, they're just appalled, like, why not? And I said, you need to call the town. You need to see someone at the town and ask them about it and find out. I said, it doesn't work that way. And like I said, they're very, very surprised, very surprised. And I do agree in the rest of our pie in the sky ideas. I think that we can all work together and make this work into something other than a big housing development. It's just not the place. It's not the place. And if you look at some of the others in town, and I'm from here, and you all know that, most of you, that started out looking very pristine in Lisbon, that now need quite a facelift when you're driving through there. It doesn't look anything like it did when it first went up. And it looks, someone needs to do something with that. And that eventually, that's what you probably will wind up with down there. After the buildings change hands several times, you don't know whether you have someone from in-state or out of state present or just doesn't care and they're in it for the money. And like everyone else says, and once it's gone, and you're stuck with that. You're stuck with it. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anything else? We all set to move forward? Thank you. Next item, please.
Consent agenda. Agenda items are considered routine and will be considered for adoption by one motion with no separate discussion unless the council requests an item to be removed. Any councilor wishing to remove an item may do so now. Seeing none, order 2022-23 to approve the municipal accounts payable warrants for $180,266.02. Municipal payroll warrants for $191,406.29. School accounts payable warrants for $185,998.09. School payroll warrants for $407,567.46. Minutes for January 18th, 2022, and medical marijuana retail store for BBB Pharmaceutical Alternatives LLC.
Entertain a motion to approve.
Make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
7-0, order passed.
Thank you. Next item, if we could, if with council's permission, I'd like to have actually Mr. Bickford come up and actually promote the idea about the rail to trail before we get into the other items. All the council's all set for that?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yep. So.
Roger, if you'd like to come up. I know you've done your time here, so we want to make it pleasurable for you.
Roger Bickford, 129 Main Street. I need a vote of the council approval to get the railroad bed from the Topsom line to basically, it's not the river road by the restaurant. Because one is owned by DOT Rail, one's owned by Pan Am. We're not asking for Pan Am yet. That's a major thing. But I need a yes vote from the council. Then me and the town manager can call the state, and they most likely will approve it because it went through as law. This is the routine you have to go through to get it. So that's basically all I need is a vote of yes to proceed, and then I can go with him and go for it. And we're going to stop at the crossroads. We're not going to go into Topsom right now because Topsom has got other issues with Grimmels, and they really don't want to fool with him. And so we're trying to find a way around that, but that's their problem.
Dealing with the Lisbon item at this point.
It's a Lisbon item at this point.
What, Mr. Chair, what would be the vote again?
I believe what we would actually do is make a motion to allow the interim town manager to work with Roger to actually proceed on what the procedure would be and what the legalities would be. And so basically we would just be making a vote to allow the town manager to proceed with the idea of looking into.
Don, we have to have permission from the DOT to do this. And it's set up for that one.
I'm just asking what we're asking to do.
Yeah, it'd
Just
be.
to get permission from the DOT.
Yeah, it's tonight what the council would actually be doing is actually asking the interim manager to actually work with Roger to get the information, get the details, so we can actually present it to actually make sure that it's benefiting the town and giving the town manager the authority to actually work on the project to actually see what the benefits are and what we need to do to proceed forward.
Does this have anything to do with the sale or potential sale of the railroad property?
As far as I'm concerned, I've been working with the railroad through Rick for quite a while. There's no sale of the railroad property. They will not relinquish it. Or whatever you're hearing, it's not, they do not want to relinquish that property as of yet,
The railroad.
the rails,
Yeah. Okay.
that right away.
I had heard that there, through pretty reliable sources, that there was a purchase and sale on the railroad by another railroad that included this section.
That is, but that other, they're doing, I've heard the same thing, Don. So it's cross-referencing, and this is where it's come right now.
Okay.
Any other
Roger,
que-
where is it?
Yeah.
Where is the lake?
It's gonna, basically, we're gonna go from the Thompson line. I wanna try to get from the Thompson line,
To
The Lewiston line?
out behind the Big Dipper.
oh, the Big Dipper.
Yeah, that, the Pan Am starts almost across from
Sebastian River
the
Bridge.
back of the Big Dipper the other way, and we don't need the Pan Am. I'm just trying to connect the Big Dipper and downtown.
DOT
But I'm not gonna go into Thompson because they have other issues right now, so instead of
Not to the
trying to do
railroad.
everything around for the other,
This is for a trail.
it's a multi-purpose trail. It's not
And
just for one thing, it's for everything. Horses,
rails are staying and the
no, the rails will be removed.
rails will be moved.
Yeah, the rails are on, especially on this side, are all junk. The rails, and that's not an expense, that's with the clubs. We'll have to do that. I gotta call Mr. Bronson to see if there's a provision to have them come down, because they do that once in a while.
Okay.
So, I'm working with the Lisbon Club, and we just gotta get, this is the very first step. I have to get permission to proceed.
Mr. Chair, I'd make the motion that we do that, if there's a second out there.
Second that?
To further discuss, I believe what you're talking about is the DOT property.
Right, that's all we want is
The
DOT.
railroad property itself is further in beyond,
Well, it goes down behind the Big Dipper. It turns into Pan Am.
right, and it's
And
Pan
I
Am I
we
was
don't want
talking about, okay. So there may be more going on there too.
There may be more going on there.
So, and just to be clear, we actually have a first and a second, and this motion is basically to allow town manager, an interim town manager, which has some background in this already, a little bit.
I do have some information I can add too if you'd like.
If you like, before we vote, yes.
So you're correct, it's Pan Am, and they're in the process of changing hands with CHX, which is huge on rails to trails. And they've worked with communities all over the state. I know I was working with the ATV club up in Lisbon. And it is from just past the Sebastian River Bridge, right, the River Road, where CHX is, we'll be leasing those rails all the way up into Lewiston.
What I'm going to be looking for is all the rail that DOT owns.
Yeah, and that's from that River Road all the way down to Thompson to into Brunswick.
Yeah, but Thompson has got other issues.
Yep.
And they're not going for it right now, but there's no sense in keeping the space open and then have to come back.
Yep.
So it's where we're not going to be using it, and other people are using it, and they can use it, no problem. It's just, it's permanently DOT rail. They will not relinquish it. They'll let you use it, but they won't relinquish it.
And anything else from council at all? And I believe the benefit of this is what you're looking for, is the
Yeah.
idea, so people can actually use ATVs and snowmobiles to actually access that downtown.
But we're already down to the
Boat launch.
Capitol Avenue and down through, and the town owns the right of way to the railroad bed. We just have to figure it out where it is, and then get down to it. But that's minor. Where the town owns it anyway.
So just to be clear, the motion is to allow the interim town manager to work with Ryan on seeing what the details are and how we need to move forward, and then I'm sure other information will come back to council as we actually make the full discovery. So entertain a vote. All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roger.
And Ryan, I'll be seeing you.
Door's always open.
Okay.
Next item, please.
Order 2022-24 Adult Use Products Manufacturing Facility for Cannabis Angels.
The so the adult use, I believe that I believe there's some. If you want to come up and speak, sure.
I don't need to. If you
No.
want me to, if you have a question, I don't know what we need to.
Well, actually, this is basically a discussion because I know there's some stuff that's been actually working through the planning board to try to get the approval. There was some discussions about the process in it. So this would be the council's part of the process to actually approve the opportunity for the facility, and then I believe you still actually have to just finish working through the planning board, right? And that's actually ongoing at this point in time. but the council does have the opportunity to actually vote on this part of it to move it forward, and then once everything's completed as far as all the legalities to the planning board, then she would actually be entertain a license. I'd entertain a motion.
I'll second that.
What's the
The
motion?
first? Actually, do I have a first?
What's the motion?
The motion would actually to approve the manufacturing license for Cannabis Angels,
Pending changes.
pending the changes and the approval through the planning board process.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, and you'll second it? Any other discussion through council?
I just wanted to say that at the last planning board meeting, there are moves and there's some steps that will be taken at the next planning board meeting and then at the town council to make some modifications to ordinances to make this perfectly clear and satisfy what it needs to satisfy.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, there's been a lot of things this is fairly new to the community for the last few years, so some of the processes haven't been as clear. And the process that the planning board is going through right now is basically just cleaning up some of the ordinances that just were kind of need to be cleared. And I think the steps are correct, and I think we are doing it the right way. But this allows her to actually keep moving forward with the process because it's still a multi-step process, and we don't want to hold her up because of a town issue. But I believe the town's part of it will probably be all cleared up prior to her getting the rest of her approvals to the state. So we have a first and second. All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Order 2022-25 Warumbo Site Development Options.
Lisa Ward, Chair of the Lisbon Development Committee. I made sure that Council had information in their packets, and I have I hope that you all had a chance to look at the material that I was able to get to you at your last meeting so that we could all be on the same page. So thank you for the opportunity to review the LDC's findings so far and to present you with an update. The site we refer to as Warumbo offers a beautiful view of the Androscoggin River and the falls where the Warumbo Mill once stood. In addition to the opportunity for a park and green space for residents and visitors, this jewel of Lisbon could very well be the best opportunity for growth that Lisbon has seen in many years. The town of Lisbon currently owns the Warumbo parcel. The town-owned site is roughly 4.5 acres and over 18,000 vehicles pass the site daily. It is centrally located, minutes from I-295 in Brunswick-Topsham to the east and I-95 in Lewiston-Auburn to the west, with Portland within a half-hour drive to the south and Augusta within a half-hour drive to the north. What we do now will represent all of Lisbon for many years to come. So we need to be diligent in making sure that we do everything in our power to consider all viable options until we have the public survey in March to inform the Council of the public's top choices. The Lisbon Development Committee's goal is to make sure we reach out to and hear from as many residents and business owners in Lisbon as possible while researching the information needed for the Council to consider. The LDC members have worked hard to develop the descriptions you have before you today, so that, with your approval, we can move to the next step of the process to estimate financial implications, determine if and how much more parking we need, and to create visual renderings to help represent how each option could affect views and connect to the surrounding village. The main question before you tonight is, do the 4 options we offer here represent a good range of the public input, market, and parking study findings and community preferences regarding the future of the Warumbo site? Council's approval of the options at this stage of the visioning process will help to ensure that the community survey we plan for March will represent the broad spectrum of the community goals for the Warumbo site. We have 4 different options here. Each one represents the preferences of a segment of the Lisbon community who've provided us with input. For example, Riverside Park, option 1, is offered to represent the views of Save the View after we asked for input from the public leaders of that interest group. Members of the entire community will have the opportunity to vote for their preferences coming up in March through the survey. The reason we seek the Council's approval for the 4 options tonight is to ensure that everyone who participates in the survey and the process has the chance to vote for an option that represents their viewpoint. We recognize that, although the Riverside Park option has a vibrant and vocal support group, there are others in the community with differing opinions, and we need to represent them as well. The LDC's goal is to make sure we reach out to and hear from as many residents and business owners in Lisbon as possible. At your last meeting, I presented you with the notes and descriptions of our progress to offer you more insight. If you would refer to those notes, I'm going to briefly go over them for the community who are listening or watching. So we have 4 options. First is Riverside Park. Second is residential housing with public Riverside Park. Third, residential housing with restaurants and a Riverside Park. And 4, boutique business opportunities and Riverside Park. Each option will include green space and parking acreage. The synergy of the option, does it fit in with the character of the town of Lisbon, economic and tax impacts, the probability of developer interest in such a project, and notes about the option. Every option will require upgrades to the adjacent public infrastructure as well. The TIF revenues could help those much-needed improvements both at Warumbo and in the surrounding village area, and could help provide matching funds for additional grant money for the area. The tax money that goes into the downtown TIF would benefit by helping with upgrades to the surrounding infrastructure. Upgrades would include improving the crosswalk at Route 196 and Main Street, adding a possible trail, additional lighting and streetscapes, as well as benches, public art, and other pedestrian amenities. So, option 1, a Riverside Park. This option produces aesthetic possibilities for the town as a park, a gathering place, and possibilities for farmers market and small events. It is not intended to be an essential direct revenue producing development for our town. The park or green space would be about 3.75 acres. Parking would be the same as current, about 3/4 of an acre. There would be no direct tax revenues. Income from the community to the community from employment and linkage to employment needs don't apply. The developer investment probability doesn't apply either, because for this option, the town of Lisbon retains ownership. Synergy, does it fit with the character and needs of the town of Lisbon? There is some for the existing park and also for potential events. Notes, parking lot improvements, lighting, additional electrical, additional access and egress, and landscaping to create the park. So that's just it in a nutshell. Option 2, residential housing with a public Riverside Park. This option offers apartment-style housing units, a public park, and the option of office space in the housing units. Usually that means businesses on the first floor with rental units above. In this option, the park or green space would be about 3 acres. The parking and development space would be 1.5 acres. The estimated direct tax revenue would be $66,300 to $108,540 per year. That's the minimum and maximum amounts. Income to the community from employment would be marginal, but linkage to the community's needs would be very high. And developer investment probability, we used a scale of 1 to 10, and we put it at 9 to 9.5. This is something that, if it went to a developer, would have a high interest for a developer. The synergy is that it would add to the residential base and offer greater round-the-clock activity in the area, meaning people live there 24/7. Some notes to include: it would include 20 to 24 housing units or 16 to 20 housing units with an additional 4 office spaces similar to the units. The housing units would be 1,000 to 1,500 square feet, 1 bedroom with second room for home, office, den, guests, or second bedroom. The single bedroom units don't contribute as many children to a school district and emphasize synergy with the surrounding village for seniors aging in place as well as young professionals. Option 3, residential housing with restaurant option and a public riverside park. This option offers apartment-style housing units, a public park, some office space in the housing units, and a possible standalone restaurant. The park would still be about 3 acres. Parking and development would still be 1.5 acres, give or take. Direct revenues, direct tax revenues would be between about $66,000 to $90,000 a year. Income to the community from employment, it would provide 20 to 25 full-time jobs, equivalent to a total of $500,000 a year. So this has a very high linkage to employment needs in our community. Developer investment probability on a scale of 1 to 10 is about a 6. The restaurant, if a restaurant is put on that space, would be subsidized by the residential tax structure. Synergy, does it fit with the character and needs of the town of Lisbon? It would add to the residential base and add to round-the-clock activity. It would include 20 to 24 housing units with a maximum of 4 offices, possible restaurant space of about 4,000 feet with indoor and outdoor eating and small event options. Each housing unit would be the same as the previous. And option 4. Boutique business opportunities in Riverside Park. And by the way, this was the most challenging one to come up with a name for. So this option offers a public park with some a variety of small boutique-type business units and a possible standalone restaurant. The green space would be about 3¼ acres. Parking and development would take up about 1 acre and a quarter. Direct tax revenues would be under $30,000, just under $30,000 a year. Income to the community from employment, it would provide about 30 to 35 jobs, equivalent to a total of about $750,000 a year. It's a small link to employment needs, but it does provide jobs. Developer investment probability, 7 out of 10 if a restaurant's included, 8 out of 10 if it's excluded. Again, the restaurant would be subsidized by the residential tax structure. Synergy, does it fit with the character and needs of the town of Lisbon? It could become a single destination cluster, having the park and a place to shop and to include 10 small, modern, alternative commercial units decoratively designed with or without a restaurant, with indoor and outdoor eating and small events. So in all 3 of, all 3 of the options that are not park only, the park space is still about 3 acres, not a lawn. So I also added to your packet a review of the timeline that we have, because I think that it's important to keep it in mind each step of the way. In January, we completed the draft scenario work group, and that's how we came up with this information. The statistics, we had Howard Cohn, whose company has done all the marketing work for us. So we were able to rely on his expertise for that. Today, we are on step 2, council to review and approve the continued work on our presented options. The next step will be economic impacts and tax implications, the parking analysis and visual renderings for each option. That will be done during the month of February. The next step will be the community survey. I did note some reservations from a few folks who spoke earlier. about the survey, and we've talked about it when we had an open forum at the LDC meeting a while back, and we've taken that to heart, and we will be doing a survey that will fall within the guidelines that people have mentioned that they want to set for us. So we want it to be fairly simple to do. We want it to be clear. We want people to be able to choose an option that's right for them, that they feel that they can support, that that's what they want to see here. So that's why we have the 4 different options. The final step in early April will be a presentation to council of the survey results with all the findings and studies. It will be the last portion of this process. At that point, the council, the development committee will offer all the information so that the council can make a decision based on all the information we have. I just want to make sure that everyone knows also that we included the downtown TIF information in your packet, just as a refresher for those who are already familiar with TIFs, and as some solid information for those who haven't maybe seen it as much. I'm open to questions.
Council, any particular council have any questions to Lisa directly, or?
I've got a couple.
Sure. Go ahead.
Option 2 and 3 are fairly similar in the type of housing unit to develop. In a lot of other areas in New England, this same thing has come up. Did we not think about like a condo, like people buying into the community instead of renting into the community?
During the process that we've been following all along, that wasn't actually one of the options. But it's important to keep in mind when we offer these options, these are what we will offer to the developer as our vision.
Sure.
If they come back to us and say, we think we can do better by you and the town in general by doing something slightly different, that would be up to the town to accept.
Okay. How long would it take to do kind of a synopsis of like a 20-unit condo? Because I think someone brought up Bath. Downtown Bath did a really great job. They put a fair amount of condos down on their waterfront, and it was, I mean, those were $500,000-$600,000 condos, probably $8,000 to $10,000 a year taxable resident units, and you're buying into the town versus a renter. You are bringing family,
right,
which is typically higher income.
Right, a condo is more like buying a house.
Right,
so
exactly.
you're a little more invested.
But you're also going into a condo engaged with sharing an area, which kind of is almost a semi-bridge to the
and it's
renter
also
versus owner downtown.
something a lot of people in not just in the rest of the country, but in Maine as well are doing, especially because we have an aging population. Even though I'm past 55, I don't think I'm old, but I don't want to mow the lawn anymore. So I think, you know, we're seeing more of that generation, and we're seeing more of that kind of. So that's a valid point. And I think if a developer brought us that option, we would look at it. But I can talk with. Well, actually, I can ask Brett. Are you still here, Brett? Yes. Do you want to come up?
Sure.
So, I of course focus on the committee work, but Brett has more of that information. I don't know if that's within Howard's scope of work.
Well, to your point, it's a good question. I think basically what Howard came back with was based on the 500 or more survey responses, income levels, what people are currently paying, what their goals are, that the sweet spot was about 1,000 to 1,200 square foot units with a mortgage or rent about $1,200 to $1,500 a month. So that's what he came back with based on what the responses were. I think you might be able to attract investors from outside of the community, but his analysis was really largely supporting Lisbon residents, either downsizing from larger homes. There's a fair amount of folks in town who are a little bit older who are looking to downsize, or young professionals moving into town that can't find their place. So you can market it, and what was originally approved in combination with this parking study and with the market analysis was an RFQ, request for qualifications for a developer. So to Lisa's point, you know, the end game, if the community wants to go with a development option, is not to create a very small sandbox and say, hey, developer, this is exactly what we want you to do.
Right.
It's to create some parameters. We want to make sure there's a nice buffer between the park and any development, but also to leverage the expertise and the creativity of a developer, right? So you want to create enough parameters, but also invite that creativity into the process.
Okay.
So those numbers, just to close the loop and simplify, those are based on their survey responses.
Okay.
I think, actually, when Brett was just explaining that, it reminded me that a couple of times during our discussions at the committee level, we talked about residential housing that's affordable, and by affordable we meant by affordable by more people, not necessarily low income, not necessarily luxury, a nice middle of the road. The guy who's been on the police department for 5 years, the teacher, the professionals who want to live in town because this is where they are working and dedicating their lives, having a nice place to live. So I think that even though that's not in this, I think we did sort of incorporate that idea all along of not just senior housing, but housing for people who don't have a lot of children, young people just starting out at new careers. They're professionals, but they haven't been doing it very long. And this would be this kind of spot we would see. I don't think we could, we briefly discussed luxury, but I think it wasn't a fit for that area.
And there could be, a combination where you could have 10 units that are senior housing, 10 units that are workforce housing for police officers and firemen.
BIW workers.
BIW workers, and then 20 units that are higher end that could help pay for some of those. So there's a way to piece it together.
Okay. Any other questions, Council?
I just wanted to emphasize the point that this is an option, 4 options out there that would attract some sort of, 3 of them anyway, would attract some sort of developer that we as a town would pair with to work using the guidelines that the people of the town have desired. I think you said that in a different way, but that's what I'm trying to get across.
But yeah, the beauty of this process really is if we can reach a consensus as a community before we go to the market, we can create some specs that we would expect a developer to adhere to. And you could have some provisions in that development process where if it wasn't going the way we wanted to, you could claw some of that back.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Yeah, if I may, on option 4, reading this, it's pretty attractive. You've got 30 to 35 jobs consistently, yearly, $750,000 consistently, yearly to Lisbon. So option 4 is nothing small about it, right, at all, right? And as far as housing on that river, and which it is, the view is good for a view, but it's not waterfront ocean, right? It's not the Kennebec, right? You're going to get a little piece of a river, right? So I'm not sure you're going to get people that's willing to invest $150,000 a year to live on Androscoggin, right? So, but option 4, to Council's point here, though, there is 4 options, and I think it's up to the town's residents to decide which direction they want to go. I hear a lot from the downtown businesses, a lot of positive things from all the businesses downtown, and there's some very good businesses down there, very good business people. And I also hear a lot of good things outside of downtown Lisbon. So, when I'm out traveling around, I hear a lot of good, if I'm at Aubuchon's, I hear a lot of good things from there. If I'm even in Lisbon, and other areas, there is a lot of people that are stressing their concerns, like the concerts at the school, they mentioning, how much bigger that could be down there, more attractive. And if we went to option 4, if the town decides to do that, the residents, I think that would, you know, might be an avenue there that because I'm getting a lot of feedback where, you know, residential, I'm not hearing good things about residential. I don't know what the rest of the councilmen are hearing, but I'm just not. I mean, I'm getting hammered, right? And people in the town of Lisbon just don't want apartments down there.
Mr. Chair.
Right? They just don't want them.
Could we make a motion so we could have discussion after the motion?
We can actually we can do that. Typically, just so everybody knows, in most settings for council or for proper decorum, we actually should make a motion and second it for discussion, and then we can actually discuss upon it. So I'd entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I'd like to approve the 4 options as presented and to move forward with compiling in the form of a townwide mailer and email all of the information gathered into new renderings for sending out to households in March with instructions for completing a survey. That's not all that precise, but that's pretty much what's there.
And I'll take a second.
I'll second that. I'll second that.
Discussion, okay.
May I
Sure,
continue?
absolutely, yep.
This is.
So you weren't done your option,
Huh?
were you done your motion, or?
The motion's there and second.
Okay,
so
okay, good. Yep, there you go, you got the floor again. I just make sure I didn't want to
I
interrupt
just wanted to
your
get
motion.
the floor before everybody else does.
Don't,
that's
we're
all.
going to take our time, do what you need to do, Don. Don't worry, we're not going to kick you out.
I
don't have to be
I
working
am
for,
sympathetic to everybody's view in the room. I have, like Tracy says, I have my views, but I want to respect everybody's views. I want to get as wide a survey as we can on all the options that are possible, so that in the end, we know pretty clearly that we can find a developer, if that's what we're going to do, that will go with those guidelines and create something we can use. I think we have to go with the widest use. I don't think we can eliminate in this chop residential, because I don't think the town council, nor do I think a lot of the people sitting in this room, know what the rest of the people think.
Can I make a motion?
And no.
Actually, it's already,
I have the
there's-
floor. I
it's
have the
already,
floor.
basically, we have.
wasn't sure how this worked.
No,
yet.
basically, so what we do is we actually get a motion, we have a second. Then after that, the council has equal time to actually discuss it prior to a vote. So we're all like.
Votes up or down.
The vote's up and down, and then it can be another motion after that. So Don,
Right.
you continue on. Yes.
So
Yep.
I just want to make the point that that's out there, and I don't want to exclude things. If it, my views are exactly the opposite of Tracy's, but if the council and the town as a whole wants a park, let's do it. But I don't want to do that until we find out from the rest of the town what they want to do. And I think a direct mailer followed by a survey, and maybe even using ranked choice voting to get a definition out of it and not a confusion factor, might be a way to go.
Have you been talking to residents in the town?
Yep.
Have
Yes,
you
yes,
have?
yes.
You have?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you all set, Don? I don't want to cut you off. Yeah.
So when I was running for council, I really didn't have a clue what I was doing. So I went and knocked on everybody's door, and I talked to everybody I possibly could to have them sign my paper so I could sit up here and be on the town council. And pretty much just like this, here today, what I noticed from every resident and every business owner in town that I spoke with to get on this town council, nobody wanted residential on this property. It became a very big topic, so I made sure I asked everybody that I went to, knocking on their door to get their signature. So out of every 30 people I talked to, one person might have said, well, we could possibly benefit from residential because it would lower our taxes. Just like in this room today. We've got 10 people saying no, 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 no. 1 or 2 people saying, you know what, this could possibly work. That's just what I noticed, personally knocking on doors, getting signatures to be up here.
Right.
That's just all I've noticed.
And the reason that we have residential housing in 2 of the 4 options is because we did have input from some people that they wanted residential housing. So to Don's comment, that is why we included it.
If I could also, it's also the most likely to be bankable at this point. You know, one of the reasons that commercial is a challenge, and one of the reasons that the consultant identified the need likely to subsidize a restaurant if one was to be built, is that the rents that you can command with commercial property in Lisbon won't justify new construction at this point. New construction costs are extremely expensive for the type of amenities that would create retail or boutique retail. So really,
where was this consultant from?
What's that?
Where was this consultant from?
He's from Baltimore.
Baltimore?
Got a PhD.
Okay.
Can work all over the country.
So nowhere near Lisbon, Maine.
I don't think that. I'm just gonna say that having spoken and worked with Howard, he is incredibly professional. He's very well versed. He has been doing what he does for an extremely long time, and I don't think that we should question his results because he doesn't live here. But I think that he has, because he's from away, has gone out of his way to make sure that he understands what we want here. And so to hopefully put your question to rest, he has done a remarkable job making sure that he listens to us. And remember, that's not just Brett and I, that's the whole committee. And
I'm just saying I know who I spoke with, the residents of the town, and I'm hearing a lot of feedback from this gentleman in Baltimore. So that's all.
If I could, what he looked at is the data.
Okay.
He's not taking he took the survey with 500 responses.
Yep.
That I think 40% said that there's limited housing options and not good housing options. But he looks at the data at county level and does an analysis and says, this is what the data tells me is viable.
And it's a really great way to get that person who doesn't have a vested interest other than making sure he does his job to the best of his ability. But he doesn't have a vested interest. He doesn't have a reason for making us go in one direction or another. He's doing what we hired him to do and providing the information we asked him to get.
Yep. And the other, Harry, actually, and Mark, and yes.
Either way,
Yep.
I was just going to say that there's a couple of misconceptions out here, I think. One is TIF revenue, and the other being this is probably one of the easiest, best decisions we could make for the town because we own the property. But on the same token, it's probably the worst one because if we didn't own the property, the developer would come in there, or could come in there, meet the zoning standards as they now exist and say, tough, this is what I'm building there. We have a good choice in that matter here. As far as TIF funding goes, are your taxes directly reduced by putting up something that gets tax money? Not in that zone because it's TIF money. But the TIF money goes into the downtown area, downtown TIF, which supports things like infrastructure and park development and all kinds of things in that area, potentially. It also can do credit enhancement. And it also could be taken out of the TIF. So that's all still possibilities. And so in the case, if it were taken out of the downtown TIF, then it would be general revenue, general taxation. So.
Yep. And Harry and Mark, we'll let you folks go. You all set, Harry? Mark?
All set for vote. No, I just wanted to say that my personal preference on this is definitely option one, the Riverside Park. I think that's the best use of it, but I would support putting out this mailer just because it's not up to just me. I want to know what the people say. I tend to agree that the public opinion is, let's go with the park, and I agree with that, but I think we should have something definitive to say this is what the actual results were.
And if I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So I know this is we've had a lot of discussion. I just looked up this past month. I looked up some old files. No, I don't save everything, but I do save a few things now and then. And I found one of the first articles that mentioned the town council discussing Warumbo and what to do with it now that it's torn down. And that was in October of 2019. And it was a very positive article from the Times Record. I should have brought it. But I just want to say that we've been working on this for a long time, and we've put a lot of time and energy into it. The work that I presented to you tonight, I got information from Howard, discussions with the committee, and of course information and work with Brett and the Economic Development Office. But this is what I have worked on. I have put countless hours into this. I wrote every one of the pieces of paperwork that you have in your hands from this committee. And I am not, I don't want to leave anybody out of the discussion. I want everybody to have the opportunity to be able to either vote on the survey or have input by email or in person. This has been very difficult because I've put so much, it's been difficult for me personally because I've put so much of my own time into this because I know it's important. And when I started out this evening, I read you some information that you'll recognize from the Warumbo .org website. And it says, in addition to the opportunity for a park and green space for residents and visitors, this jewel of Lisbon could very well be the best opportunity for growth that Lisbon has seen in many years. I see that as a phrase that can refer to any one of those four options. And I don't think there's a wrong answer because I've seen so much of this information come across my desk. But the key is to do what we will be proud of seeing in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And the only thing I'm afraid of is walking down Main Street 5 years from now and seeing something still under construction.
Can I ask another question?
Sure can, absolutely.
So we're bringing all four options to the town, which we should. I'm a little concerned how we're trying to get people involved, though, right? The surveys, and it's the town's residents' issue, not ours.
It's been an
obviously,
ongoing
right?
problem.
Right, and it's sad, right? I see the results, and it's sad that not enough people are taking the time to voice their opinion, right? But with that said, I don't think we can fix that. But with these four options, let's say the town resident vote on option one, and it stays Riverside Park. And the town still owns it. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. So if the town still owns it and the Riverside Park turns into something that is within 3 years identified that it's going nowhere, the residents made a bad choice, couldn't we come back and then say, hey, now it's time to do something different? If it doesn't work, right, it's a total disaster, it's troublesome to the police department, right? Who knows what comes that way with a park, right? But if they do vote for Riverside Park, we'll respect that, obviously. But also, with that said, though, if it doesn't turn out to be good, I think we should be not very patient with it, right? I think we should, give it time to be successful. But if it becomes very foreseen that it isn't going to be just that, I think it's something that we can reverse that decision and say, you know what, town, we tried, right? It was up to you to make it work, not the 50 people sitting here, and we failed. And now we need to do something different, right? So I just want to, I think we need to make sure that the residents understand that, right? When we're sending out surveys and all of that, we need to let them understand that if option one or any other option, let them understand if it becomes a park and it doesn't work right, then we need to do what we need to do. But there is a lot of support for it. So I'm not sure where this is going to go, and we'll support whatever the town wants. But I think it's important if the Riverside does make it that it's also communicated that it needs to become something, right? That is helping the town and the ideas that are out there, right? So so it just doesn't fall, you know, to a dead space.
It's up to the people to make it become
Right.
something.
We don't want a dead space either, right?
Right.
So,
And that is exactly what I was sort of headed toward, I think, and you put it a little better than I did, but I just don't want to see nothing there. I want to see something beautiful regardless of what the people in Lisbon choose it to be.
the residents, if that's what they pick, it's up to them to make it work and make it viable for the town of Lisbon, right? And
Don, you actually had.
I was just thinking to myself, I wonder if the form of the mailer and the form of the survey could be made or should be made available to the town council to look at before it goes out, just for clarity purposes and for making sure that we all agree that it's asking the right questions. I know that's an LDC thing or economic development.
Actually, at the end of the day, it's a council thing. So, I mean, that's something that we
No,
do.
I think that's one of the things that we intended to do anyway, because, you know, we try, on the committee, we try to represent as many people as we can, but we, you know, we've consistently reached out for additional input wherever we can, and that is exactly what we would do, because you as council represent the broader community. So I think that if we didn't do that, we'd be remiss. So it is something that we definitely want to do.
I just one more thing I have when you're done.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. I'm reminded of a saying that a camel is a horse that was designed by a committee. So we need to be careful about, I think, moving forward. And I'll go back to my experience years ago. And if you go down on Capitol Avenue, there's a railroad spur down there that the town paid for. There might have been a grant involved. But that railroad spur was going to light up Capitol Avenue. We were going to have the railroad stopping there. Goods were going to go out. Goods were going to come in. And it sits there, basically it's all cement. It's not rotting, but the supports around it are. So that was a sort of a snafu that was done by a committee and the council, the selectmen at the time. But I also look at Farwell Mill. Farwell Mill ended up being purchased by the town. That was also mill property, and they turned that into the apartments, and I believe there might be one or two businesses in there. I'm not sure. Maybe some nonprofit stuff in there. There was a church in there for a while.
More residential. Yeah.
So, and that seems to be. I mean, I believe the town sold it after they got it all fixed up. So, to me, that worked. So, I think we just need to be careful. The other thing is my wife's family, and a lot of probably families here, have worked at that mill when it was running. It was built, I believe, in 1865 or so. They made clothes for the Civil War, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears from the people in this town through their grandparents, parents, probably go back to great-grandparents that worked there. So to turn that into apartments and residences, I don't know. When I did my candidate night, and I think Tracy kind of hit it on the head, when I spoke about Rumble, my thing was slow down. Let's take a step back. Let's make sure we're doing the right thing. And I understand and appreciate the work that you've done and the committee have done. And I think that we should move forward with the recommendations of Lisa and get it out to the town as much as we can, to the people as much as we can, to see what they are looking for. I said then that we haven't seen that view since 1865 when that was built. So the question is, do we want to put a wall up again so we can't see it anymore? So that's all.
Don, one last
one last shot. Ray mentioned getting it out and the trouble that every community has with getting responses. I think we could take one of Kevin Kimball's little lessons out there and buy a few signs with a link to their website or a link to the survey or something that gives you, a surprise. I know when I saw Save the View for the first time out there, it kind of like, what is that? And it kind of enough to make me want to go look. And, well, maybe that would be good for this survey.
Anything else from council? I have a couple questions if I could. So on the 4 options, there's actually, the gentleman actually put direct tax implications, okay? Could Brett, could one of you explain what that means? Because when people hear that, they think it's direct tax money to the community as far as for lowering the taxes. That's a kind of a misconception a little bit. Maybe you could explain, because it does seem a little misleading when it's meant direct.
Easiest way to describe it,
They can't hear you on TV.
easiest way that I can describe it as I understand it would be property taxes. That's a direct tax. An indirect revenue would be what Mr. Cunningham is describing, where you're bringing people in and they're not paying directly into the town coffer, but they're supporting businesses that do that. So direct tax benefit would be property taxes that the town would assess just like they normally do.
Is that kind of misleading since it is a property tax, don't get me wrong, but it's not a direct. People just think of direct as in like going straight to the idea of reducing taxes. And the other part,
talking with the consultant, he actually thinks it's more transparent.
Yeah.
That it's easy to sort of estimate indirect stuff, and he wanted to stay away from that because there's a lot of follow through that has to happen.
And are those guaranteed numbers?
No, but they're based on rents and based on what a property, what it would cost to construct, what the assessed value would be, which is, working with Kathy. She provided some comparables earlier in the process that basically these are some properties, if you built this amount of square footage with this amount of land, that would be the rough value. They're not exact, but that's why it's a fairly decent range from 70 to 100.
Yeah. And could you just explain the idea of subsidizing a restaurant?
Yeah, I think that what that means is, as I mentioned earlier, that if you were to go build a new restaurant with the bells and whistles that looked very nice, you would have a hard time getting enough rent. In Lisbon, you might not Portland, you might not in Bath, you might not elsewhere, but in Lisbon, based on the market, you would have a tough time attracting a developer to that because you can't get enough rent to justify, we all know, very high construction costs these days. And so if you wanted a restaurant, we as a community, you might say, hey, that's a benefit. That's going to bring people in.
So you may have to TIF it.
It's all right. It's credit enhancement.
And credit enhancement, but you don't actually think there would be any credit enhancement if someone was putting up a multi-unit apartment with office space? You don't think that would be a possibility?
It might be.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not making any promises here, and it would all depend on the size of the project and also the aesthetic value. One of the comments that we've heard so far, and it's a good one, is you don't want to throw up low rent apartment buildings. That's aesthetics. If you want to pay for a little nicer building, that's something that the community would have to weigh in. But Howard, based on the analysis he did, those are benefits that would flow to the town without tax benefits.
Did he actually check and the restaurants are already active to see if they were subsidized or anything like that to actually be within the community at all? I'm just curious. The existing restaurants, I don't know of any existing restaurants right now that are at least a 200-room that actually are subsidized actually to open up and start new. So I know it's an assumption. It's just one of those things where I don't know if it's a fair assumption in a sense where saying that if there was a restaurant, most likely it would have to be subsidized. That's all.
Construction. The beauty of the restaurants that we have in town, and the beauty of the example that Howard made with the new brewery that just opened up, is that building's been here not quite since 1865, but that's been on Main Street for a long time. And so you're fitting up an existing structure, but you're not building a whole new structure. And that's why there's a key difference between new construction, which is what would be at Warumbo, versus a different type of project.
Yep.
I have a question on.
Sure.
3 of these have income. 1 has none. The one that has none, we all know that if you don't have any income, there's expense. Has there been an assessment done on what the cost of keeping this is?
So that's part of the next step is to go ahead and make sure that we get that information for the 3 options that do have income. The first one, though, because it doesn't include development, we have to assess it. We have to do that assessment differently. so that we can come up, we want to come up with solid answers. And go ahead, I know you're itching to.
No, I just, the first option, the cost component, does it have a skate rink? I live in Westbrook. Westbrook just put in a 4-season skate rink, $400,000. So it really depends on what kind of amenities you want. And maybe there's an opportunity for Save the View folks or the folks who are really proponents of that to, put forward, a design, right? What would be a real good amenity there that folks would get behind? We could probably do a fairly simple, what's the cost of a linear foot of rail trail? That's probably something that that information is out there. So we could find some comparables, I think, to at least rough it out. I know Mark Stevens is in the room tonight. He's the Park and Rec guy. He's probably got a stronger network of Parks and Recs folks, and that's probably who would have a good handle on what some of these type of infrastructure investments would cost.
I was thinking the other guy in the room who would have to maintain it and what that would cost. More or less than.
Well, that's where that legwork will come from us and not Howard.
Okay.
So just moving forward, I mean, one strong thing I've always maintained on council and always through is if when you actually do a vote, you actually explain why you vote yes or no, right? I mean, that way there people understand where you're coming from. And tonight, I mean, everybody knows I have a pretty strong opinion of this also. I mean, you've been working on a couple of years. I've been working on this area for over 10 years. I mean, actually been working on this area my whole life. I mean, but this area in general, for well over 10 years to actually see this being developed and actually be a good space for the community. I mean, I do have a few days of concern down there of what I'd like to see and what others would like to see down in the area. Couple things. I mean, I'll be voting no on moving this forward only because of how I feel about it, and it's not saying that how any of the other council votes feels about it, because I really don't think the residential option is the best option. One of the biggest concerns I have is once that property is actually sold to a developer, anything can happen to it from what they want to do at that point. And I'll give you a prime example. And again, we all had our opportunities, so I'll just say my part is, as a council member, we actually had a great opportunity one time. We had a building in town that was costing us roughly about $13,000 a year to maintain. It was the old high school, right? The old grammar school, the old whatever you went to school there, everybody went at a different level. And it was a big old brick building on Campus Avenue, right, the old high school. And we had an option of selling it, but we actually had a developer come in and say, hey, look, we can make apartments there. We can remodel this thing. We got some historic credits we can use, and with the town's help, we can make it work. And we had a great proposal come through with blueprints, and I mean, it was overwhelming. It was awesome. You know what I mean? And the biggest thing as a council we were sold is, hey, look, get this thing off your property and put it on the tax roll so we can collect revenue, which who wouldn't think a great thing. So we as a council actually voted to sell this building for $1. Okay, so we sold it to $1 to a developer, and we actually helped them get $1.5 million in grants, plus their $1 million. That ended up being $2.5 million in this place. We toured it. It was they did a beautiful job for everybody that went through that building because of historic grants. Things change, different owners, different ideas. And then I also had the opportunity to be on council when they came forward and said, look, we got seniors living there. We're tax exempt. We don't have to pay you anything. So, I mean, there are people in this room that pay more money in their house taxes than they get on that 12-unit apartment now, and you can't do anything about it. I mean, it's privately owned. It is what they want to do. So when people talk about housing units and what could happen 5 years and walking down Main Street 5 years from now, no matter how we sell it, it doesn't, once it's sold, it's really not ours to control anymore, whether it's high-end, low-end, subsidized. We definitely need residential units, I think, right? I mean, we have a community that's growing. We have a lot of infrastructure problems. We have a lot of school problems. We have a lot of growing pains, right, as a community. Do we have other areas that we could potentially do residential? Absolutely. I could name a dozen of them that actually could work really well for residential, and every bit of information that LDC and the economic department has got can work on any, because remember, we did this town-wide, right? So this can actually happen anywhere in our community. It doesn't necessarily, we haven't wasted any energy here because what we've actually brought forward can happen anywhere. My concern is what happens on that site and our long-term plans. I, too, don't want to drive out of my business and look over there and see something that I say, oh, my God, I can't believe we allowed that to happen on any level, because I think it's our due diligence as a community to make that work. a while back, this discussion came up on the last council, and I actually brought forward to the council and say, look, we have a November election coming up. Why don't we put this on the ballot, right? We actually have taxpayers go in. Why don't we actually put it up to a vote? Let's let the people decide. And the council actually voted 5-2 to actually not do it because they said the council should be the one making the decision, not the people. Okay? So when we go out here and start asking again for the people's input, it's really hard for me to actually think that we're going to get any more. The 500 people we got back last time was not just our community, it was our community and surrounding communities. It was anybody that actually not just lived in Lisbon, paid taxes, but anybody came here and did business. I hear from the people I hear from. Everybody's different. We all have our own opinions. That's why we're 7 on the council, right? We all got our opinions. I don't feel, I'll be voting no to move this forward because I actually know the direction that I want to go. And, as Don and, and everybody says, everybody has their opinion, what they need to be. But I truly believe, yes, that message was given to me when I brought that forward to go to the election, that the council is going to decide it. And I think if we have a strong enough decision tonight as council, we can actually send that direction now. Yeah. Let's housing happen in Lisbon. Let's promote it. Let's actually take the rundown buildings we have and the apartments that are empty in town. Let's actually take our energy and get those filled. Great point. We can put apartments there tomorrow. We can do it next year. We can do it 10 years. We can sell that whole piece of property. We can do anything we want down the road.
Absolutely.
But I just don't know. I would hate to sell to the people that we're going to put apartments there to actually make money, because believe it or not, I was a huge seller for the campus cabin, campus commons. We had public hearings, and I was one of the biggest sellers because I thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. I would actually.
Not every idea works.
It cringes me every time I drive by that now to know how much we were actually taken back to the back shed and taken over when that project went through. Whether they knew that when they started the project or not. Don't get me wrong, we are collecting some taxes because they came in said in good faith, we're going to give you, several thousand a year just to actually keep you because,
half of what they should be.
Because we do have older people there, so if something happens, an emergency, we'd like to have the ambulance show up and fire truck show up. So they are paying some, but legally they're not responsible to pay a dime. Right. So, and yet we still got to respond if there's a problem there, right? So again, that's my own 2 cents, and we all have our separate opinions, and that's why we actually were picked to be on the council to serve the community that actually put us here. So, we will bring it to a vote if anybody has any discussions.
If I may.
Shortly, yes, if you can.
Yes. We've known each other a long time, Fern, personally, yes. and I think that we respect each other in a lot of different ways. And I do understand your point of view, and I understand why you would like to see what you'd like to see. I would like to emphasize that I did not come here tonight so that the community of about 10,000 people could be told that they're now going to have a park. I came here to ask, as I stated earlier, the question before you tonight is, do the 4 options we offer here represent a good range of the public input, market, and parking study findings and community preferences regarding the future of the site? I did not come here to ask you to vote for the choice that you would like to see. There is a part of every single one of us who would like to see just a park there. And so we can't, I can't disagree with you, but I can say that I would like to see, if we've already spent all this time doing this, I would like to see us finish the process. The process was approved by council, and I would like to see it through. I will be happy with a park. I will be happy with residential housing. I will be happy with a park with some boutique businesses. I'll be happy whatever we do as long as we do something. I'm not here as a proponent of any individual item, but I am here to urge council to continue the process. It's only a couple more months, and once we do this, we can say, and you can say, that we did our due diligence and that we did everything in our power to do what we needed to do to know what the town of Lisbon wants.
And yes, I totally understand where you're coming from, but what doesn't happen in that survey is the idea of having property owners that actually abut that's had a business there for 15 years that could be directly affected by this.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
Mr.
no,
Chair,
just
this is not a debate here.
totally understanding. So let's stop the debate, okay? But that's my concern about surveys. Is the idea it's not the full. So we're going to stop, as you say. Let's actually stop this and put the vote. And
I just wanted to make sure
we're
that
a council of 7, so I mean the option of actually anybody making the decision on how they want to go is totally fair. I just feel that the only reason I express, because I don't like council that actually votes no on something without expressing their concerns or why they're doing so. So we'll end
I
it
just
there.
wanted
We'll
to
go
make
vote.
sure that everyone knows what I brought here.
Absolutely. And I think you've actually done that very well, and your time is actually well appreciated. So I don't think, hopefully, that any way this vote goes, that it's not, because it is. Absolutely. All right. We actually have a motion and a second. So all those in favor?
To move forward with it.
To move forward with it, yep. All those opposed? So it's just on the record, that's all. Thank you.
I really appreciate your time, and I promise you that we'll do our best. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Order 2022-26, solicit bids for salt shed.
Randy.
You still
Yay.
awake?
Yeah.
Randy, you still there?
You almost lost me there for a little bit.
It was the early part of our meeting, so.
I was doing snow removal at 4 a.m., so it's kind of dozing off back there. But anyway,
Yes, sir.
I want to solicit I want to get some input on what we can do for a salt shed. This year's been really hard, more than any other year, to try to get my product here. There's been 3 storms that I've had to do nothing but sand. I've told you this before. Had issues with trucking on their end. Can't get us the product. We've actually put our truck on the road, 2 trucks, our wheeler and a tractor trailer with a dump trailer, to actually go get some product just so I have some in the barn. We've already voted that, council had already voted that we have $450,000 allotted for a salt shed. At this time, I'd like to get the permission to go out there, see what we can afford for 450 grand. If it's going to, suit our needs, because we can get our product, we can get it here either with our truck, pay a lot less money for the product. We have the trucks, we have the dump trailers, the 2 days a week. Let's say that the transfer station's not open, my guys could utilize the trucks and bring the material in, or we can just have it all trucked in before the winter even starts. We get 3,500 ton a year regardless. But this year alone, I've been having issues, especially with the ice storms and everything else we've been having. I can't get the salt here. So I think this being the times that we're in, and labor shortage and everything else, and trucking industry is taking a beating, it's time for us to get something in motion here. We've had an old foundation there since 1986. Nothing's been done, but dirt's been piled all over it. I'm now getting to the point where I didn't want to use this much sand, because I'm not supposed to use this much sand in town, because we're part of an MS4 program. So I'm probably going to catch heck for it, at some point when I start doing my filings and how much I've had to pick up and how much I put down. But I think it's moving forward. We should at least go out and I can present something to you and say, this is our options. We can get this for a building. We can get that for a building. This is what we can afford. Will it work? Won't it work? I know the construction costs are still high, but I mean, we got to do something. For me, serving the town, and not having salt to put down the road is it's not a good thing.
Mr. Chair, that money was set aside last year in the budget.
Yes. Yep.
So we can make a motion to do that.
We have money allocated for it, and basically we have nothing to lose by going out to see what we have for options. So I'd entertain a motion.
I'd make that motion.
Second. Second. All those in favor? Get some numbers.
Order passed, 7-0.
See what's happening.
All right.
Thank you, Randy. Next item, please.
Go to bed.
Order 2022-27, renewal sidewalk snow and ice removal contract.
Before Diane's departure, we had asked that we extend Four Seasons for 1 more year, same price, and they've even added on wine time and a couple of other sidewalks to plow. They said, I'll do it for the same price for 1 more year. and that his contract will be up in 23. So it's bringing it up to council. It's only extending it one more year at the same price before we go out and get another bid for another 5-year project.
Mr. Chair, so move.
Second.
Everybody's read the packet. All in favor?
Yeah, I did.
Order passed, 7-0.
Next item, please.
Order 2028 generator bid awards.
Again, before Diane's departure, she actually found the money to fund all 3 projects. So both fire stations and the PW will get their generators. It's totally funded either through, I believe it's in the packet, but it's either through TIF. I had 40,000 allotted. I was only a couple grand off, or maybe 5-6 grand off. Can't remember. Street lights and that came in real close, 40-something thousand. But I wasn't off that far, as far as the generators go. But working with Nate and everything, and Diane, we actually found the money to actually get everything done. And I think we should award that to ECM, I believe.
And make a motion for discussion.
No second.
Okay. With this being said, I mean, there has been discussion about the generators, and there was. I mean, Diane actually did pull it through and was able to actually pull some money from some other TIFs. The other thing that I had asked of interim was the idea that the fire chief would have talked about grants, potential grants that may be coming up. So, I mean, I think the council actually has to do one or two things right now. Unfortunately, the bid was put through as a complete package, meaning that it was the person got all 3 generators, or that's the way it wrote. So we couldn't actually break off just the public works, from what I've been told anyways. The question would be is I'd just like to hear back from Nate. I'd like to know the severity of where the fire departments are. If we can save $50,000 by grant money by putting into the generators, but also taking care of electrical concerns and just renewing that bid as a single unit. We have the money. I mean, a few weeks, I don't think it's going to make a difference. Level of need for the fire departments, 1 to 10. I mean, where do you think we're at?
Well, the generators are 15 kW generators, which is totally undersized for what's operating within those buildings. If we can't run the vent system and the garage doors at the same time, or we burn something up, the things brown out. So dramatically undersized for the stations. Matter of fact, the electricians are kind of surprised we haven't burnt something up already while under generator power because it's so undersized. So the need's there. And the fact that the transfer switch at the Lisbon Falls station is the original transfer switch, that has to be dealt with. It was just one of those things when we looked into it. It was very cost to do that and a generator later. It wasn't cost effective. It was better off doing it all at once. The grant that's out there, it is a federal grant. The tricky thing about this project is that they take the top 3 ranked applications. So there's no guarantees we'll get the grant, and even then it's a 50% matching grant. So that's the little twist on that part.
So you actually feel that you need to get these done probably within this period if to make it work out?
Yeah.
Okay.
There is another project that was supposed to be done this year, allocated through TIF money that can be also held off. We don't want to totally zap that Kelly Park TIF because I really don't want to do it. There's one project I really don't want to do in the middle of winter.
Yeah.
And that's because it's too cold to go without a boiler. But
yeah, I mean, I'm all for it if it's actually money that we can use. I mean, the TIFs are designated for certain requirements. I mean, this year, in the last 2 months, we've used almost $750,000 of TIF money, and most of our TIFs are actually getting pretty thin, which is fine because that's kind of what they're there for. But we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of actually accepting the bids on the generator?
Order passed, 7-0.
Next item, please.
Order 2022-29 360 traffic camera bid award.
There again, I believe we only came up like $2,000 short on this project. Putting these 360 cameras in, it's going to help town-wide because, as you know, traffic could get backed up all the way past the church. past Walgreens, even down to Highland Avenue. Same goes the other way. It could be backed up all the way past Crafts coming the other way. If these lights were all working in unison and the flow of the traffic was better, it'd definitely benefit the town. Seeing as though we're growing, we've got more people in this town now than Topsom does, and I think we have old infrastructure and old equipment that the equipment like at the 196 and Route 9, that constantly, as these poles move ever so slightly, as Ryan can attest to this, it has to be recalibrated all the time. Any little movement, because those wires, they're all, the lights and everything, they all hang from the same poles. Any movement of any sort, your traffic's getting backed up because it's out of the photo cell and it's just off. I mean, the way they line those up is pretty intense. So.
A motion for discussion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I just absolutely just love sitting at the traffic light there at 3:30 in the morning waiting.
So, a question about the bid. There's
Yeah.
still money in there for underground wire.
Yeah.
How come?
That's for future.
That's usually what fails. So I thought this discontinued all underground and road wire.
I think I don't know if what that line is for.
Is a few $1,000s in there for replacing underground wire, which, I thought that's totally did away with that, but.
Yeah. I'm not sure if that's for the electrical.
That's $500.
I could be
Yeah.
wrong.
Was it?
$500.
$500 for underground.
Yeah,
But it was
$500.
actually, wasn't there something in there for the underground cable? So the underground cable is actually, I thought there was another one too that actually had some of the. Either way, it's all good. I was just curious. I read something about underground. I thought the cameras above ground actually did away with everything underground. That's all.
Connection to something else that's already wired.
I know that if it, I'm not quite sure on this, but I know like the ones by Graziano Square, that box has the phone wire that goes in, which communicates to electric light, and that's how they know what's going on, and they can communicate with that from their location. They can redo and recalibrate it from their location. That's correct, right?
I just seen that they all actually had a line for underground wiring, and I was just wondering why. Because I know that's usually what failed in the past was the underground wiring would actually break a crack, but you would think a feed would be coming from the pole, not so much from the ground. But it was just a question. That's all.
I believe that, like I said, I know this for a fact because I was there when they were doing the sidewalks. Yeah. But that line comes in from a pole and goes into that center island.
Yeah.
And that's what feeds the
so the information cable.
To the information, to the telephone line.
Yeah.
Telco.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Randy, when you say the backup, that's because the lights are moving so they're not turning when they're supposed to be turning, like green to red.
That's correct.
Get out of the rhythm.
So it definitely does. It definitely does that.
Oh yeah.
And also the different lanes, like to what Randy explained. I was down there at the intersection of the high school, and those are actual cameras. I always thought they were motion sensors because that's what I was told many years ago by another company. But I was, to my amaze, when he actually plugged it into his truck, and I saw cameras of the whole intersection that don't record, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But what happens is those wood poles with the temperature differences move throughout the year. So every year they have to be recalibrated, the cameras. And it can be actually pretty costly. We actually do have some cameras at the other intersection that are broken, hence that's causing some problems with the traffic, and they're very expensive to repair.
Is that?
The one at the Route 9 in high school.
Isn't that
like a
we
turn
actually
lane?
just put those in just.
Yeah.
And this is what
that 360 camera takes care of all that.
All the cameras, because there's cameras all around the intersection.
That's what you did down here at this intersection.
Yeah, we had just fixed them down at the Graziano intersection.
Yeah.
Now, can then 360 cameras become multiple use where it can?
I don't think so. They accept.
Trust me, I asked.
So Randy, we'll bring it to a vote, but do me a favor, when you're driving, if it hasn't been already, if you're driving up to the high school from the falls, the lane one that's actually one of the bolts out and the sign's hanging like this.
Ordered.
Could you actually fix that? It's been like that for a couple of weeks.
Raised on it.
Ray ordered it, right? Yeah.
Typhoid.
They're waiting on a part.
A screw?
Yeah.
Just a bolt fell out of it. That's basically what it is. So it has two bolts.
Yeah.
Upper bolt fell out, so it's swinging upside down. It's been like that for a couple of weeks. But
which one is this?
Ray's all over it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all good. I was just making a joke, but it's all good. Okay, all those in favor? Sorry. Sorry about that.
Who maintains our streetlights now?
Electric light.
We're not using
Responsible, you mean?
A&D?
A&D anymore?
No. No, because we'll probably wait a month and a half before they even come in. And then they charged me $6,500 to reset one pole. They said they had 6 trucks on site. They only had 2. They said they had a yard and a half of gravel to repack around the post. They used maybe a 5-gallon bucket.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
I'm all set.
So we're not dealing with 2 different vendors now.
it's
We're
one.
A&D does something, and then this new company's, and they have to talk to each other. Okay.
I think we have
So
to do
they've
this
got
because
the
it's in the
whole
Times Record.
It actually is. Absolutely. All right, all those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Perfect. Next item, please. Thank you.
Order 2022-30 wastewater treatment plant composite sampler bid award.
It's some of the best for last, right, sir? Absolutely. I'm Steve Avioli, Sewer Superintendent. This year in the capital improvement plan, we have the replacement of 2 refrigerated composite samplers. These samplers are both installed around 2007. They basically sample the influent coming into the wastewater treatment plant, the effluent leaving, for required testing that the DEP requires us to do with our discharge permit. Both of these samplers we've been running into issues with. We've had them on the plan for a couple of years, be replaced during this fiscal year. Got approval to put them out to bid in October, held off until December to put them out to bid. Requested bids from 3 companies, received bids from 2. As you can see in the packet, high bid was $19,006, and low bid was $14,803, and we had a budget of $15,000. And the samplers, that low bid sampler actually would give us everything that we would need to replace our current samplers. And it's also a local company that we'd be buying them through, so we get local support, even though they're manufactured in Florida. But yeah, we'd like to get approval to purchase those samplers from Russell Resources if everyone will approve of it. And make anything a motion.
I like the motion.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Before we go, could I just ask Steve, what is this used for? Can you explain this?
This is it's used to sample the influent and effluent. There's 2 samplers. Influent's everything coming into the treatment plant, and the effluent's a flow that's leaving. And it's testing we're required to do per DEP and our discharge permit. And we do flow-paced sampling, so these will take samples over the course of 24 hours automatically.
So it shows how you're treating it, and if you're treating it effectively before you dump it off into the river.
Yep, making sure we stay in compliance. Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I learned that the other day.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, the tour we did, you could use.
It was a great tour.
It was
You could use some pine tree.
Air fresheners?
Guys go in those domes there.
And I'm trying not to rush, but if there's any other discussion from council at all on this? If not, all those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Order 2022-31 wastewater treatment plant returned activated sludge pump bid award.
And also more items that were listed in our capital improvement plan for this year. We have 3 return activated sludge pumps that are vital to the operation of the treatment plant. Without them, we basically wouldn't be able to treat the sewer. These pumps were installed in the early 90s when an upgrade was done. As a couple councilors could probably attest to the condition of one of them, and I brought it up at the meeting in October. One of them actually is not operational at this time. We put out bids to 5 companies. We actually received back 1 bid. And part of it is what we have there is the only thing we really know. We based our spec around what that pump currently does, and it's a direct replacement, which is what we were actually hoping to get because that's the least cost. And so we're going to be able to install these pumps on our own once we get them. So we'll be able to save that installation cost because they are a direct replacement. And we had $70,000 budgeted for these pumps. It came in at just over $45,000 delivered to the wastewater plant. So you're within budget? Yes, sir. I entertain the motion.
Motion to proceed.
Motion and second. Any discussion? I don't want to rush this on and push anybody not to go to discuss. All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Thank you for doing what you do for us, sir. Hey, thank you.
And coming under budget twice.
Yeah, absolutely. We love them. Next item, please.
Order 2022-32, Lisbon COVID-19 vaccination testing and face covering policy.
Interim, I'll actually...
Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Would it be appropriate to do a motion to table indefinitely?
If you're a counselor, you can bring that motion forward.
I do that.
Is there a second?
I like to second it.
Okay, any discussion from council?
Yeah, I'd like to discuss it. I would like to see this just end.
go away.
I
yeah.
think that we
That's
keep
what it-
tabling
that's
That's what he
it.
meant.
That's it.
That's what he meant. Yeah.
Table it indefinitely.
That's what you do.
Get rid of it.
Yeah.
Not a yes or no vote.
Table indefinitely gets rid of it.
Gets rid of it,
Has council, State of Maine actually done anything forward on it? Do you know, I've heard of it?
Nothing else.
Been nothing said at this point in time, right?
They're waiting on basically the courts at this point.
It ain't going nowhere. I agree. Let's just get rid of it, right?
Okay, all those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Next item, please.
Other business, council committee reports.
If we do have them, let's make them short because we still have quite a ways to go here. If not, I'm not pushing anybody, let's do it. School committee. Tracy actually informed me a little bit. They are working towards a budget next Monday, I believe, right? Is their first budget? First. And you can do that from the comfort of your home, right? Okay. She actually did have.
That's going to stream on town.
Yep. Perfect. Okay. Next is planning board.
They have the council. I mean, the town. The planning board's working on a zoning change for a medical marijuana issue, which we all know about. And other than that, they have a case before them that is still pending that review.
Perfect. Development committee. I think we heard that pretty much tonight. All right. Conservation committee.
I got nothing.
Nothing at this point in time. Parks and recreation. Nothing. I mean, Mark's here. If there's anything, any 2-minute highlight, 2-second highlight you want to give us, 2 seconds. You can go to the mic. State your name, where you live.
My name is Mark Stevens,
Address.
and I live at 37 Cotton Road. I'm a recreation director, Parks and Recreation. Last Monday night, we had a combined MOXIE committee meeting and a Parks and Recreation committee meeting, and it went very well. Met for about 1 hour and 10 minutes, got a lot accomplished, a lot of enthusiasm for this year's MOXIE Festival, and we're getting ready to go public probably next Monday, I think, with everything. It's actually, we posted on the moxiefestival.com today, so.
It's happening.
It's good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Budget committee, county, I don't think there's anything yet there.
I got nothing.
Nothing yet at this point in time. Library governing board?
Nothing new to report.
Okay. Water commission?
Nothing.
Nothing. And then finance committee?
Yeah, you saw Kayla sent that out, right? The
Yep.
fiscal, so they were done the audit. Good job there. They're setting 5 goals for themselves, and they're actually thinking about adding a couple more meetings to their busy schedule as is.
Wow.
And they'll be reporting to us when they decide what their dates are. But they're looking to add a couple more to get ready for the final
Budget season.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So
Thank you.
it was
Appreciate you.
interesting. It was. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on that. I thought it was very interesting.
Awesome. Town manager's report.
I'll keep it brief. It's been an interesting couple of weeks. Things are going well in the town. All the department heads are doing a great job, and their department head reports will be forthcoming in the next meeting.
Perfect. Next item, please.
Town clerk interview committee, select 1 or 2 council members to participate.
So we have an open position out front of the clerk, and the interim town manager would like to post that position. He'd like to actually have 1 or 2 members of the council serve on that interview board. Is there any?
I will.
Okay, Don. Anybody else actually have interest in?
I'll do it.
Okay, so we have 2 takers. Thank you. Raise your hands quick, you get on. If you don't, you're late for the bus, you sit in the back, right? No. And you will actually be giving them forward the information when those interviews will be.
Correct. Those that'll be forthcoming. We'll reach out to both of you with the information.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Next item, please.
Appointments, none. Councilor communications.
I spoke my piece tonight. I'm going to be quiet. Anybody has anything else as far as communicate?
Shut up, too.
I got nothing.
All right. With that being said, if we're all good, we're going to move on. Audience participation for response to new items. Is there anything in the audience that people would like to respond? Seeing that most of our people left and everybody's pretty much spoken, I think we're in pretty good shape, but I'll leave that open for a second. Seeing no activity, let's move on. Next item, please.
Executive session, order 2022-33 to go into executive session per 1 MRSA section 4056A personnel matters.
I'll make
And-
that motion.
And second?
Second.
Second. And all in favor?
Order
And
passed, 7-0.
Potentially may be a vote coming out, so I just want to put that out there just in case that there's any concerns. Okay? We'll stay right here. Close the doors.
Can we
and-
adjourn for a second?
Absolutely can. Let's give it 5 minutes and 5 minutes to,
4.5.
yeah, and counting. We are not holding any more time because we definitely are way beyond. We didn't actually do our homework ahead of time. When we do our homework ahead of time, we get quick things. All right, we'll bring this back. I take a motion to come back into session.
I'd like to make that motion.
Second? All those voted come back into session. Don, entertain a motion.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to allow the interim town manager to begin a search for a new assistant town manager and to designate $100,000 from undesignated funds to facilitate filling vacant town positions and to fund a town manager search.
Second?
I'll second that.
Second that. All in favor?
7-0, order passed.
And I need I'll move forward.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you, everybody.
7-0.
I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Back home to the kids. Back home, that's right, yeah.
Babysitter's about done.
Down there forever,
Mark,
probably.
can I just get you to sign this?